What happened this time was totally different. This time there was a collapse of a financial system, which took interest rates to zero. Now, I know there's a lot of alarm now. People say, oh, the interest rates went up on bond and in debt in the last couple of days. And they said, oh, is it because of the increase in increasing the deficit in the short term? Is it because of the economy growing? That doesn't bother me. We have to get out of deflation. The biggest problem we have now is deflation. So, look, I'm a Depression-era kid. I don't like deficits ever, really. We had 4 surpluses when I was president. That's what I like. I like balanced budgets and surpluses, when you have growth. But if I were in office now, I would have done what the president has done. You have to first put the brakes on a contracting economy. And then you have to somehow hold it together until growth resumes. When growth resumes, you have to have interest rates higher than zero. So you should actually now, if they get too high, you'll be alarmed. But you should be encouraged that interest rates are beginning to creep up again. It's the sign of a healthy economy, and the idea that there would be competition for money. I do believe that we'll have to take aggressive and disciplined action to eliminate the structural deficit again. And I think it was a mistake to go back to structural deficits. I think if America were out of debt on a normal basis, and we didn't have to borrow money from our major trading partners, we would have more economic freedom and economic security. So I want to see what comes out of this. But I expect to support some very vigorous actions to eliminate the deficit and get us back to balance. Yes, one more. I've got to get out of here. Go ahead. Question, thank you, Mr. President. Beyond this pending tax deal, there are enormous issues of importance that are unfinished, from education to energy, the deficit. And this is still a very dividing country. Do you think the American people want a president to compromise with the opposing party? And is that a message that you think Democrats are going to have to accept? Former President Clinton, yes, but I also believe that it's a message Republicans are going to have to accept. Keep in mind that many of the really interesting thing is that a lot of the hardcore conservatives think the Republicans gave too much. Read Charles Krothamer's column in the Post today. He's a brilliant man, and he pointed out that they got the divisive tax cuts. But most of them were targeted to middle-class working people. That's what the payroll tax cut is, that the unemployment benefits were extended. Which some of them did not want to do, and that the American people, by 2-1, support them both. So there are some conservatives who don't believe in the economic theory I just advanced to you. Who believe that the president and Democrats got more out of this than the Republicans did. So I think that's healthy, too, because everybody has got to give a little. Yes, I think the one thing that always happens when you have divided. Government is that people no longer see principled compromise as weakness. This system was set up to promote principled compromise. It is an ethical thing to do. In a democracy where no one is a dictator. We would all be at each other's throats all the time. And we would be in a state of constant paralysis if once power is divided, there is no compromise. Question: what's the political fight worth having? What would you tell Democrats the political fight worth having is right now? Former President Clinton: well, I think it's worth fighting against the repeal of the healthcare law. I would be in favor, and I can give you 4 or 5 things. Off the top of my head, I think should be done to improve it. I think it's worth a ferocious fight to avoid repeal of the student loan reform. Which I believe is the best chance we've got to take America back to number 1 from. Number 9 in the percent of adults in the world with 4-year college degrees. I think it's worth fighting against repeal of the financial reform and the assurance it gives us that we won't have another meltdown, and if we do, there won't be another bailout. I think there are a lot of fights worth having. And I presume the Republicans want to fight those, too, since they ran on that. And they'll be able to have these differences. But this holds the promise that after the fights are over, we'll be able to find principled compromises on those areas, as well. and to me that's worth doing. But first, the economy first. We can't go back into a recession. We have to keep crawling out of this mess we're in. And this is a good first step, both on the substantive merits and on the psychological. Relief it gives to the American people in general, and the small business people and community. Bankers and others who can start doing things that will help get better in particular. Thank you. Barack Obama. Joint remarks to the press following bilateral meeting. Delivered May 20, 2011, Oval Office of the White House, Washington, D. C. President Obama, well, let me, first of all, welcome again Prime Minister Netanyahu. Who I think has now been here 7 times during the course of my presidency. And I want to indicate that the frequency of these meetings is an indication of the extraordinary bonds between our two countries. As is the opportunity for the Prime Minister to address Congress during his visit here. I know that's an honor that's reserved for those who have always shown themselves to be a great friend of the United States and is indicative of the friendship between our countries. We just completed a prolonged and extremely useful conversation touching on a wide range of issues. We discussed, first of all, the changes that are sweeping the region and what has been happening. In places like Egypt and Syria and how they affect the interests and security of the United States and Israel. as well as the opportunity for prosperity, growth, and development in the Arab world. We agreed that there is a moment of opportunity that can be seized as a consequence of the Arab Spring. But also acknowledge that there's significant perils as well. And that it's going to be important for the United States and Israel to consult closely as we see developments unfold. I outlined for the Prime Minister some of the issues that I discussed in my speech yesterday. How important it was going to be for the United States to support political reform. Support human rights, support freedom of speech, religious tolerance, and economic development, particularly in Egypt. As the largest Arab country, as well as Tunisia. The country that first started this revolutionary movement that's taking place throughout the Middle East and North Africa. We also discussed the situation in Syria, which is obviously of acute concern to Israel, given its shared border. And I gave more details to the Prime Minister about the significant steps that we are taking to try to pressure Syria and the Assad regime to reform. Including the sanctions that we placed directly on President Assad. We continue to share our deep concerns about Iran, not only the threat that it poses to Israel but also the threat that it poses to the region and the world if it were to develop a nuclear weapon. We updated our strategy to continue to apply pressure, both through sanctions and our other diplomatic work. And I reiterated my belief that it is unacceptable for Iran to possess a nuclear weapon. We also discussed the hypocrisy of Iran suggesting that it somehow supports democratization in the Middle East when in fact, they first showed the repressive nature of that regime when they responded to the own peaceful protests that took place inside Iran almost 2 years ago. Finally, we discussed the issue of a prospective peace between Israelis and Palestinians. And I reiterated and we discussed in depth the principles that I laid out yesterday. The belief that our ultimate goal has to be a secure Israeli state, a Jewish state. Living side by side in peace and security with a contiguous, functioning and effective Palestinian state. Obviously there are some differences between us in the precise formulations and language. And that's going to happen between friends. But what we are in complete accord about is that a true peace can only occur if the ultimate resolution allows Israel to defend itself against threats. And that Israel's security will remain paramount in U.S. evaluations of any prospective peace deal. I said that yesterday in the speech, and I continue to believe it. And I think that it is possible for us to shape a deal that allows Israel to secure itself, not to be vulnerable. But also allows it to resolve what has obviously been a wrenching issue for both peoples for decades now. I also pointed out, as I said in the speech yesterday, that it is very difficult for Israel to be expected to negotiate in a serious way with a party that refuses to acknowledge its right to exist. And so for that reason I think the Palestinians are going to have to answer. Some very difficult questions about this agreement that's been made between Fatah and Hamas. Hamas has been and is an organization that has resorted to terror. that has refused to acknowledge Israel's rights to exist. It is not a partner for a significant, realistic peace process. And so, as I said yesterday during the speech, the Palestinians are going to have to explain how they can credibly engage in serious peace negotiations in the absence of observing the quartet principles that have been put forward previously.